Okay, it is 9 o'clock today, October 1st, 2024. I'll call to order the Land Use and Information Committee meeting. Notice has been posted in accordance with Wisconsin Statute 19.84 Open Meeting Law. At this time is time for public comments. If there are public comments someone wishes to make on an issue that is not on the agenda. Otherwise, during the public hearings, you will be able to testify at a 3-minute limit per person after the applicant has made their presentation. Hearing no other comments, I'll move on to a motion to approve the agenda order.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Szymanski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Supervisor. Take your pick. Actually, that was Supervisor Moyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Now a motion for the approval of the minutes of the September 3rd, 2024 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve by Supervisor Blomberg, second.
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Szymanski. Supervisor Anderson.
I would like just to have a small amendment on page 4 where we were reviewing the landscaping plan. If we could just make note, we discussed not just the implementation, but maintaining the screening. So I believe it was covered in the conditional use, but if I'm not even sure where it would land in there, but if we could just
Just want to insert language that we also
Just-
enforce the need for maintenance.
to maintain it, not just to
Maintain the
implement,
buffer.
maintain the screening.
Make that motion for an amendment.
I make a motion to amend it to reflect our discussion on maintaining the screening.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Blomberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amended the minutes. Now, Jason, do you want to read the public hearing notice?
Notice of public hearing, State of Wisconsin, County of Burnett, Tuesday, October 1st, 2024 at 9 a.m. at the Burnett County Government Center in room 165, Town of Mina, Siren, Wisconsin, regarding the following. Burnett County Land Use Short-Term Protection Ordinances. Number 1, conditional use permit CUP 2421, Three Brothers Land Management LLC. Public notice here given to all persons in the town of Lincoln, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Nick Hughes on behalf of Three Brothers Land Management LLC has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances to develop a sand and gravel pit mine on the parcel with tax ID 33096 on Ice House Bridge Road in the A2 zoning district, the southeast quarter, the northwest quarter, except the north 330 feet thereof, section 21, town 39 north, range 17 west. Number 2, conditional use permit CUP 2422, Ajoa. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Wood River, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Louis Ajoa has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances to operate a food truck and to operate a grocery store on the parcel with address 11738 State Road 70 in the A2 zoning district, lot 2, CSM volume 25, page 316, section 15, town 38 north, range 18 west.
Okay. So the first one on conditional use permit CUP 2421. Brothers Land Management, you want to come forward and look what you're going to do.
I'm Nick Hughes and I'm Cameron Hughes. Guess we're proposing doing a future gravel pit off of Ice House Bridge Road that abuts to Matthew's current property. Like to basically ask for a 50-foot setback from roads, property lines, 75-foot from water. And then be able to mine to, I guess, whatever depth we can get to find usable material.
If you haven't developed any particular plan, detail, or any plot plan or any site management plan yet?
Well, everything's contingent now on this meeting and getting a CUP. You know, I kind of have, I guess, our sketch of what we propose for mining site. and the current elevations out of the site, and I guess we'd like to mine to at least what Matthew's currently at for depth, which is on the bottom, and then we also brought, noise and dust was an issue, so we have current MSHA, which has all of our findings, results from noise and silica dust.
I do have to caution you on one regard is that the information you're distributing to Dave is not in the packet. Not in the, we did not have it before the public hearing notices came out.
Okay. This was all part of the letters that we received after the fact.
Okay, but
So-
regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless, in order for this public hearing to properly proceed, and we have court counsel in the room, I can ask her to expand on this if you want. But there is precedence in Wisconsin case law, Kramer and Sons, where all of the information pertaining to an operation of any sort, not just gravel, needs to be in the hands of the public at the time of the first public hearing notice, which is, almost 3 weeks ago, right? I understand you're responding to things, but I'm just cautioning you about what we may or may not do today. And I could ask Stephanie if I misstated anything about that.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Um,
I just, to understand,
Yep.
because otherwise concerned people, which we always are in conditional use permits, aren't aware of what you're actually going to do. And I get that, you're making a contingent request about this. So enough of that for right now. The question I will ask you though, this is a 30-acre parcel and with the 5 acres or so of water body included in it, whether it's a wetland or a navigable water body, that to be determined, frankly. And buffers around the boundaries, you only wind up with about 20 acres or so.
Yes.
Right.
You know that.
Yes.
So I gotta ask you right off the top, is it worth it for a 20-acre site?
Yes, because, mineral resources is a finite item, so future, yes. We plan on staying, where we're at currently until we exhaust the resource. But we also need the CUP to guarantee that us spending the money and divulging what we're trying to do is going to be worth it in the end.
Yeah, understand. So. I've already looked at these, and we'll pass them on. So do you have anything further to add right now? Oh, wait a minute, other committee members, do you have any questions?
No. Would this gravel pit be open to general public or is it gonna be a private use?
Private use.
You stated to mine to the depth as the adjoining, what is that depth?
It states on the paper he has on the bottom is 966. Water would be at 964.
Well, that's based on, I'll elaborate on that a little bit, that's based on our LiDAR county. Really great opportunity to get topography, right?
Yep.
But Jason, that's from 2015, correct?
Yeah, yep, so it is
So water has
9
been
years.
higher than levels of 2015 in recent years, 2019,
Yep.
maybe as much as 2 feet. So keep in mind, that's guidance, but it's not a snapshot of today.
Yes.
Any further questions by committee members? Will we maybe recall you guys, so you get a chance to discuss further, but now we're gonna send you back to your seats and open the public hearing. So at this time, those who want to testify to this matter, come forward and try to keep it at, you're limited to 3 minutes typically. So. You want to open it. Identify yourself for the record, please, Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Washington, Town Chairman for Lincoln Township. Okay, so we sent a letter, you all could have a copy of our concerns, and our concerns in the letter basically are about about our comprehensive plan and desire for this not to happen, this type of thing. And when we first did our comprehensive plan, we did a survey of the residents. And the number one thing that they wanted was that they loved about Lincoln Township was the peace and no hustle bustle. Just, that was the number one thing. And this, of course, creates an additional issue because we already have Matthew right there, and it turns into a speedway down that road with 80,000-pound trucks. This would just add to that. And I guess I'm speaking for our residents who are against this. I've been on board for about 20 years. We've had two issues that we really had a big turnout for in all those years. First one was ATVs, and I'm sure you're all aware of that. And then this, we had a lot of people at our last meeting, a lot of concern. This piece of property is bordered on three sides by private residences and property values. I mean, who wants to buy next to a big hole in the ground? Noise. Who wants that? So I guess I'm probably on almost out of time, but these are things that we are really concerned about is our residents and what's gonna happen to their properties if this is approved. That's all I've got to say.
Who else would like to speak? Timer's being set. Identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Tom Swenson. I'm here with my wife, Lene. We live at 25900 Ice House Bridge Road. Our property and residence coincides with the north line of the property being considered for the cup. We are here today to object to the approval of conditional use permit application 2421 for the following reasons. The cup is not a permitted use of A2 zoning. The cup is in conflict with existing land use and the stated purpose of A2 zoning. In addition, the cup would be in conflict with County Code of Ordinances, section 30-172, trends A to 6, and perhaps in conflict with 7, 8, and 9 of factors to be considered for a conditional use permit in A2 zone lands. The cup is in conflict with the town of Lincoln's comprehensive plan. The town's plan makes it crystal clear that the town wants to protect and preserve the rural character of the town while preserving the visual quality of the town. The proposed gravel pit would be the exact opposite of the town's goals. The cup would threaten the health, safety, and welfare of those living closest to it. Considering the dust, noise, fumes, and additional heavy truck traffic generated, I believe this statement to be self-evident. There is also the potential for groundwater degradation. The county has 22 gravel pits. Lincoln has 2 of these, more pits than lakes. Given the nearly 280 acres of gravel pit property in the town, with very little, if any, reclaimed, the town of Lincoln does not need another gravel pit. There's no justification. When the town of Lincoln adopted zoning in 2008, we had the reasonable expectation that future zoning changes would not adversely impact our quality of life and property value. Changing from agricultural residential to functionally commercial industrial with a cup for a sand and gravel pit is the most radical change possible. Zoning is important because it helps manage development, ensuring that land use is compatible and beneficial to the community. It prevents incompatible land uses from being adjacent to each other, such as industrial facilities next to residential areas. A primary purpose is to provide stability to property values. For these reasons and others, we encourage the Land Use Committee to deny this CUP application.
Anybody further wish to testify? Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Steve Pearson, Oakland Township. I want to thank you all for your service here today. It's good to be with you. This couple who come before you today have lived for 50 years in Lincoln Township, raising their family there. This pit, if it came to fruition, would join their hayfield and apple orchard, 500 feet from their house. I'm trusting that you've read the Swenson's excellent letter that was in your packet. To summarize, a gravel pit that bordered their property would conflict with existing and permitted land use in the A2 district. It would conflict with the town of Lincoln comprehensive plan. It would potentially threaten their health and safety. It would disrupt the migratory and nesting patterns of the waterfowl that visit their extensive wetland. And it would go against the wishes of the Lincoln Town Board, as you heard, which voted 3-0 to deny it. This is a prime example of why we need comprehensive plans, both at the county and township level, and both of which sprang from Wisconsin's Comprehensive Planning and Smart Growth Law enacted in 1999. This development, if allowed to proceed, would seem to run contrary to what we might call smart growth. But I would like you to look at this on a human level. There's a trajectory here of sorts, which begins all those years ago in December of 1974. The Swensons came here looking for what we all want, peaceful rural existence. By any measure, they've been good stewards of the land and the beautiful piece of agricultural property, maintaining and enhancing it. They will leave it a better place for those who follow. They built a life here which now finds them both retired. She from a career as an esteemed teacher who taught both of my children and thousands of others. He, a land surveyor known for his decency, honor, and integrity. All along, they had planned to live out their golden years on this beautiful piece of property that they've nurtured and cared for 50 years, a reward for those hard years of work and dedication. Siting a gravel pit in their backyard would definitely change all that and would run contrary to the wishes of the people of Lincoln Township as reflected in the vote of the board and in their comprehensive plan. That, it seems to me, would be a grievous injustice.
Any further testimony? Anyone else wish to speak? Do we have anybody online? Somebody in the back there, I think.
I'm just curious. I'm Tom DeWeese. I live at 5840 High School, which would be just east of where they want to put the pit for Paul Ober. And it was our understanding that she got a call from her lawyer from her lawyer, and that the Olson LLC lawyer said that they had backed out of the deal because she wouldn't sign the contingent for the easement. I'm just wondering why we're still going forward if they backed out of the deal. That's all I got to say.
No, but you're the first person to mention it. And I know of some. Okay. Anyone else? Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing at this time. You've got some more questions for the applicants. Come forward again. you're familiar with the town of Lincoln's suggested conditions.
Yes, yes,
Okay, those are not acceptable to you from what? you
No.
said.
no, not at all. I guess, well, firstly, there's no gravel pit that's gonna ever be in line with a comprehensive plan. It's just not gonna happen. Kind of going down the line here, they're asking for a 10-year expiration on the CUP, and I guess I would ask for 20. On that, being that we probably won't be in there for 15 to 20 years regardless. So that's about what our life expectancy where we're at now is. No hot mix or batch plants ever. I guess I would like to ask that, we could go for a CUP on that if the time ever came that it would have to happen. I don't foresee it. But same with washing of material that they have. I guess not knowing what the future holds, I would like to be able to put a plant in there someday if we ever had to. No mining into the water table. I guess we currently do it at several pits and do not have an issue with water quality. I live across the street from our office now and get water tested, and we've had a ready mix plant there for 60 years and have no water issues. Maintaining a 12-foot separation between the pit floor and water table, I would say no. Basically, it's a loss of about 300,000 yards of material, and rather than getting CUPs for additional material, we should get all the mineable material you possibly can before moving on. Business hours, we're fine with 6 to 8, Monday to Friday. I would maybe ask for Saturdays as we are there seasonally from 7 to noon. Crushing material twice a year, we would be fine with. They're asking for the crusher to only be located near the south property line, which I guess we'd probably start at the south and then move to the north over time. Driveway to be locked and gated, yes. They're saying no more than 15 acres open at any time, and I would be fine with that. No blasting, which will never happen there because it's not a quarry. Operator shall keep town road clean of sand and gravel, which is yes. We already take care of that on every other pit that we own. No additional driveways. I don't think that would be really feasible. I think we'd have to have our own driveway. It's not attached to the Obergs. They also want no material stored on site from anywhere else, concrete, asphalt, or crushing of any of the products, which I would say a hard no to. Just adds incurred cost on other things. No lighting other than factory lights, which would be fine. No running of generators outside business hours, which would be fine. Mining area would be reclaimed as soon as possible, which they've got not to exceed 9 years, which I don't think would be feasible because we don't know the exact use or where we would be. Reclamation and restoring topsoil, which I don't think would ever happen. We'd get vegetation to where we would need to be to comply with the DNR standards. And then setbacks, they want 100 feet and I'm proposing 50 and 75. And no setback to the south to Matthys property. Then we would follow out permits, stormwater and whatnot.
Committee members have any further questions? Comments? And I think we'll open this up to deliberations. You guys take a seat. Regarding the comprehensive plan issue, I gotta talk about that a little bit, having chaired the comprehensive plan committee. Okay, we put language in the comprehensive plan. That's guidance, it's not ordinance, okay? But the intent was that we recognize that conditional use permits that make significant change to land use ought to be consistent with comprehensive plans. That was a point because of language that has been inserted in the statute that used to be the case, but then said that you do not need to be consistent with comprehensive plans. That was prior to Act 67, wasn't part of Act 67. Act 67 is then what set limits on our discretion on conditional uses. Act 67 rose out of a case, I'm lecturing the new committee members now, that was involved a frac sand mine, where the town accepted the conditions, and the developer, I should say, accepted the conditions offered by the town, much as this one about operations, but then denied the permit anyway because of local opposition. So Act 67 sets standards for, that you have to approve if the applicant agrees to all the conditions offered. Well, we're not necessarily offering those conditions, but I understand them. I understand the concern of the town of Lincoln about expanding further gravel pits into the town deeper than they are now. Those pits that are out there operating were prior to Lincoln adopting zoning. They don't have conditional use permits. They're operating under NR 135 reclamation. But we have had Matthew offer us a significant separation from groundwater on a pit we recently approved. I think that is a trend in today's concern about groundwater issues. So I'm just throwing that out there for background for everybody who hasn't been through this before. Any further discussion by any other committee? There should be. I shouldn't be doing all the talking. You gotta pick up the pace. Go ahead, Supervisor.
I've got a few things. I don't know, about a dozen county board members attended La Crosse, the Wisconsin Counties Association, this past week. And one of the breakout seminars I attended was on townships wanting to remove themselves from county zoning. Big issue across the state, obviously. It wouldn't take up a big portion of that convention. And myself, I think the power of the people should, or power of government should be closest to people owning property. I don't know how I could ever vote against a township on what their wishes are. But that being said, property rights are really important. Comments like, oh, is this financially worth it to you? That doesn't belong in government. That's up to you to make a decision if financially worthwhile to mine and what have you. And regarding the groundwater table in my specific area where I live, it's 4 feet lower than what it was in 2015 and 16. I disagree with that comment. But that being said, I mean, I'm the District 7 supervisor. I represent Township of West Marshland and Lincoln. And you've got to, in my mind, meet up with what the town board's wishes are. Their zoning is what it is. And so I'll be voting to disapprove the cup because that's what the people want in the area. And the town board, they're elected, they're held accountable by their residents. And I'm going to agree with them on what their opinion is. So, oh yeah.
Further discussion, Supervisor Lawyer? Supervisor Szymanski?
Does, so if we deny this because of it's incompatible with town's comprehensive plan, that does not fall under Act 67 because we haven't established conditions yet. Is that correct?
Kind of. I think that we've heard from the applicants that those conditions are unacceptable. Some of those conditions, maybe not everyone, but some of those conditions, I think we would accept, and particularly depths of groundwater. Part of the reason I asked them about the relative size is that, that there's not a very big deposit in the scheme of things there. There's the 20 acres of available land. I mean, I know they'd like it, it's handy, but it isn't like there isn't any gravel there. And I should add, we also recognize in our comp plan that there are times and places when conditional use permits will not be consistent with the comprehensive plan when they're for a public purpose. Nobody wants a fire station next to their bedroom window, but it's got to be somewhere, right? Sometimes we need a gravel pit for a specific highway project. We've done that over the years. place we're talking about with that storage facility now was mined for sand for the Highway 77 project. That's why it's flat instead of a hill there. These things happen and we need to be able to approve them when they're in the public interest, right? But a private, strictly private one, we all need gravel, but it's gotta come from somewhere, but there is obviously gravel already available there. So, and again, I'm throwing these things out as counter arguments, but Act 67 would not say that simply inconsistent with the comprehensive plan is required, rise to the level. It's cumulative. If we choose to make a decision on a conditional use, both to approve or deny, we need to provide reasons, what we say in our ordinance, so is that we have conditional uses to allow for things that are suitable at some locations within a zoning district, but not everyone. If it was suitable everywhere, it wouldn't be a conditional use. Right? So with that element, and we also want to protect specifically adjoining property values and that kind of thing. That's the basis for the decisions that it isn't going to create conflict with adjoining property uses or damage adjoining property values. And then consistency with the comprehensive plan also is part of that. Anything further? Supervisor Anderson?
So just for clarification, you had mentioned changes to use of land should be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Are the plans of all the towns adopted into the county comprehensive plans or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, town plans, it always has been the case that the town plans, the aggregate of the town plans consists of the county comprehensive. And in that sense, we have our own language. We will at some point have differences of opinions with towns. We need to work those things out. But generally speaking, the town created the map and approved it through its own public process. Public hearing on it, all that, and then we accept it. We don't say, no, we're not taking that map. What they did is the map.
And I guess just another comment, I guess I agree. I mean, we get our packets and we spend quite a bit of time, this time it's relatively short, only 80 pages. But the more information we have before we can make a decision, helps us to formulate questions and educate ourselves and ask questions on, I'm not an expert on gravel pits. And so more information for me is better because that's I don't have time to consider much additional information once I'm here.
Supervisor Blumberg, anything to add?
Not really. The water quality issues are very important as far as I'm concerned. And it seems to me that this would pose, I have concerns about water quality in regards to this project.
Because of the proposed depths and the unwillingness to accept the shallower depths.
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion by the committee? If not, I would entertain a motion if anyone wishes to make one.
Motion to deny the cup permit.
Supervisor Tucker, could you expand just briefly on with a few reasons?
I want it to be consistent with the town of Lincoln's wishes. The zoning issue that I heard about earlier last week is all about the county overriding townships too much, to where townships feel like the county has their thumb on them. And I'll be bringing forward a resolution to kind of curb some of that, because we do have a township right now in the county wanting to remove itself from zoning. The act involved with that, it's a 5-year process, and that whole reason for a 5-year process roughly is so that the county has an opportunity to communicate and work with townships to resolve issues. And until we start honoring, our local elected officials at the smallest, body of government being our town boards, we're gonna continue to have problems with townships wanting to remove themselves from zoning. So it's all about that. But water quality is an issue for me too. And
Could I ask you to add also that the applicant has declined acceptance of the conditions proposed? Otherwise, I'll add that.
You can add that, but for me, it's all about the township being able to have
Good enough.
input.
Good enough.
So,
I'd like a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Supervisor Moyer. And I will, as a supervisor and not as a chair, add that the unacceptance of the conditions that are requested by the town that I believe we as a committee would have added if we were making a motion to approve is a basis that is solid under Act 67 for a denial. That's my amendment. I'll move that amendment to the conditions of denial.
And so I second the amendment.
Yes. Supervisor Anderson, seconded amendment. I'll vote on that. All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed to that amendment? Any further discussion on the motion to deny? And roll call vote. Supervisor Tucker,
no,
you're voting
yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Motion, just to clarify for everybody, a motion to deny is an affirmative motion.
Yes.
That you vote for yes.
Yep.
Okay, are we good?
We are.
Supervisor Moyer,
Yes.
Supervisor Szymanski,
Yes.
Supervisor Chuck Anderson is absent, Supervisor Lakwa Anderson,
Yes.
Supervisor Blumberg,
Yes.
Supervisor Conroy, yes. CUP request has been denied. And I will add, just as a comment, we couldn't have approved it today, in my opinion, because of the case law, Kramer and Sons. The most we could have done is postponed it for you to formalize that. But I think it would have been costing you money and wasting your time. So.
Thank you for the town of Lincoln. Thank you all.
I guess a question I would have on that, we were never even included on their agenda or told that they were having a meeting about this to plead our case. So, I mean, that is insufficient, we would have loved to talk, we would have went to the meeting and talked, but no one
I'm
was.
gonna say that they didn't, you guys should have sought out to them contact. The way we do things is we always say with every conditional use permit, you should contact the local government before you even contact us. That's just a matter of policy.
I mean, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I guess I
understand.
would have assumed that someone said something.
I don't think it would have made a
Or
lot
even
of
noticed from them that we were on the agenda.
I don't think it would have made a lot of difference, frankly,
I'm
but
not saying it would have, but I think in the scope of being fair through and transparent through the whole thing.
okay, I get that, but my advice to you, and you can call, talk, chat with me anytime you want, but the way to do this with what you're asking to do is be willing to spend a little more upfront with some preliminary, at least plans that can attach to the CUP to make it pretty clear what's gonna happen when the public hearing starts. Because adding stuff at the public hearing has already been adjudicated. It happened in Washburn County, that gravel pit off 53. That went to I think, the Supreme Court, if not, at least the appellate court. And Kramer and Sons established that you can't put stuff in the file once the public hearing is in the paper, the notice. It has to be complete. And we would have had to postpone any decision if that was gonna make or break this today. Okay? So to save that and recognize just asking for the broad permit with no details in today's world is not likely to work anymore, okay? Lecture, thanks, Drew.
No, not at all.
Next, we have CUP 2422.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Luis Ayowa. I live in 11738 State Road 70. And I'm a parent of 4 children. The ones are going to Grantsburg School District. And I applied for this permit. I own a retail store. Actually, my brother and I, we own a retail store in Baldwin. mostly is Hispanic products, Mexican, Central and South American products. And we've been very successful in the last 2.5 years. And so I started seeing people coming over to my store in Baldwin, which is an hour and 20 minutes from Grantsburg. So I started trying to find a place to rent and open a second location in Grantsburg. But it's kind of hard to find the right place to do this, to open this store. So I started talking to my wife, and we decided why we don't ask if it's any possibility to do something in our own property, which is off on 70. And so that's why here I am. And also we have a food truck. We were at the Watercross last, I don't remember what month it was, June? Okay, so, and seems like people like it. So, and also I started thinking why we don't use my property and bring my food truck sometimes. And also in the future to build something in my property and use as a retail store. And all this it's healthy food. It's nothing like bad for the community, and give another option to the community to stop and buy something or see something different.
No, and you're glad to know that you don't fall into that changing of the landscape that triggers the concern. Because it's gonna look the same way when you're done, right? So I'll add that for you, just so you.
I'm sorry.
I'm just adding that to your testimony.
Thanks.
Any questions by the committee?
Yeah, are you gonna be putting up for the store, are you gonna be putting up a new building for the store? Or are you gonna be renovating one of the older buildings?
All depending how much money I want to spend. I would like to ask if can I build I have an old barn, or to build something between a garage and that barn.
I'm sure there'll be some sort of codes for public access, and if the barn is renovatable, would be good, but I don't know what those would be.
And this would be on the north side of Highway 70, and
Yep.
then very close to the Burnett Dairy.
Yep.
Wow.
Mhm.
Which attracts a lot of people from Minnesota as they come through on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Probably a pretty good site. I think, we recognize we're working within a A2 district as a conditional use. So if you were gonna expand into a really major commercial activity, we'd probably need to rezone. But what you're proposing, it fits into that kind of an expanded home occupation sort of thing. Would you use the food truck at that location, or might you just use it as a place to like go across the street and park, for example, if you worked it out with Burnett Dairy or something?
I haven't asked if can I get the chance to bring at the Burnett Dairy. I will be kind of their competition, kind of, because they also sell food. That's why I'm thinking to use in my own property.
I don't see a problem with that, but it's,
With this business model, it's not really our business. I mean, not a question I'd have, I guess.
I think, I just want to make sure that we kind of looked at the options so we know what you're really proposing.
In the proposal, I see, it's to operate a food truck and to operate a grocery store on the parcel. So the grocery store is a future
Yes.
possibility.
Yes.
But a grocery store, depending on the size, would potentially be,
We are thinking about 15 to 1700 square foot. So it's not like a huge.
We would maybe make that, put that cap in, that the approval for the grocery store is as you propose, not to exceed that, without coming back before this committee. Any further questions by any of the committee?
Did we have
Oh, okay.
Did we have input from the town of Wood River on this at all? I mean, did they weigh in or did they know about it?
Yep, they know about it.
They do, and okay.
This is interesting too, Supervisor Tucker, because it's it's shoreland area because it's within 300 feet of the.
And that's what's my next question,
small
because they don't
stream.
fall under our zoning unless they're within 300 feet of a water, like a waterway or 1,000 feet of a lake.
Yep. Exactly, and so he falls into that. If he was a few feet one way or the other away, he
Yeah.
wouldn't be even here.
Right,
So, I
but
mean,
we'd still listen to Wood River's opinion.
Right, and if Wood River would have had a concern, they would have objected or something, we would have heard, I'm sure, and I'm sure. You know, silence generally means we're fine with this. That's what we have to assume.
I think it's great that we have somebody wanting to start a new business in the area, so I'm in full support of what he's looking to do.
Any further discussion? Further? Okay, stay right where you are. We're gonna open a public hearing and see if there's anybody who wants to testify.
Actually, I will sign I will sign on the list to publicly comment, but I'm just gonna state that actually I'm in favor of this. Burnett Dairy is a large employer of the area, and they do have possible Mexican help or, you know, Spanish speaking help. And to the fact that the dairy boards or the dairy's Christmas party was bilingual. Also, it is next door to Smoglins, which is Virginia Hennessy, which they do, you know, a commercial or property, similar situation, you know, with bread making and whatnot. So I think it fits in, so I'm in favor of it. By the way, my name is Beth Strable, and I'm from Daniels Township.
Okay. So, any further? Nate, you wanna add anything?
The other thing is I really like Mexican food, so I'm excited.
Me too, but I've tried not to say that. So, anyway, With that, I'll close the public hearing then. Any further discussion by the committee? Entertain a motion?
I think that this is helping just reinforce the idea that Alpha is kind of a place to get something to eat.
Yes.
Get your ice cream cone, get your cheese, get your food of whatever type. So it's definitely not incompatible with
With the uses in the area.
right, you know, it's a fit, in my opinion.
I lost my iPad signed off, so I'm trying to catch up.
I think the only caution or thing to think about is, you know, definitely checking with the DOT on driveway entrances and access from the highway as a potential obstacle.
So we have, so at this point, I'd entertain a motion. We're doing Supervisor Tucker.
Agree with Karen on that, that's one of the 3 points are to be made part of the motion on page 3 of 3. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the CUP 24-22 with all 3 of the items listed on page 3, lock and chain to be installed in a septic tank by the 1st of December 2024. So I'll work with the DOT to make sure access to State Road 70 is allowed for commercial activities and to follow over local, county, state, and federal requirements.
I'd like to second the motion with those.
He offered a size limit on the grocery store of 1,700 square feet. Could we add that?
I believe you said 1,700 up to 2,000?
No, 15 to,
Oh, 15 to 17?
15 to 17.
You need to come back for a building permit at that time anyway, right?
We would, but this just is that it's not, we didn't approve a mega store there. We just approved a small building under the CUP. If he would choose to rezone to commercial and come back, then he could build it any size he wants.
Okay.
And I think that, because since he offered us that, I think we should accept it.
I don't think that limits you, does it? You're okay with that, I would think. So I'll add that as a,
Add that.
That's
and
acceptable.
You seconded it as Supervisor Tucker amended it, saving some minutes. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call, we have a motion and a second, we'll call vote. Supervisor Tucker,
yes.
Supervisor Moyer,
Yes.
Supervisor Szymanski,
Yes.
Supervisor Blomberg,
Yes.
Chuck Anderson, I jumped you last time by mistake.
Sure.
Anderson is absent. Supervisor Karen Lockway Anderson,
Yes.
Supervisor Conroy, yes. Okay, you're good to go
Starting when?
with the conditions that we talked about.
Okay, so when I'm gonna get that permit?
So I'll mail you a letter stating that this has been approved. And then the only other permit you need is if you start to build or renovate a building for your store.
So I'm just wondering, because this weekend we will be, on Saturday, we will be at the festival in Grantsburg. So can I use on Friday or not?
Go for it.
Do we have to approve this at the county level too? No, okay.
Can I use my food truck in that? Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, rezones get done with the board.
Okay.
So that's all? That's
You're
it?
good.
But CUP is, you know, that's determined by the committee.
Okay, we have next on our agenda to review and discuss changes to the Board of Adjustment bylaws.
Yep, get that open here real quick. So in your packet, you have some proposed changes to the bylaws. Yellow is items that are being removed, green is being added, gray is notes or comments on different things. The Board of Adjustment did review these at their meeting about 3 weeks ago as well. Basically, the main purpose of this is to get the BOA to be 5 members instead of the 3. So that was the whole reason we have to change the bylaws. And anytime we open rules or ordinances up, we kind of look at other things. So there's some minor changes in there as well. Took out a few, like, so you struck something on section 2.2. Added a little bit of language on 2.23. To just clarify that the Burnett County Corporation Council is the BOA's attorney unless the BOA is hearing an appeal to a decision this committee made, then they cannot be the attorney for the BOA. So we wanted to clarify that.
Jason, just to clarify, that gray area there where it says proposed change would go away if BOA doesn't, that's a couple times in the document.
Yeah, so right now, the ordinance says that the BOA can hear appeals from this committee. State law was changed a few years ago that says now people can skip the BOA and go right to circuit court if they want. So,
And actually, that's sort of the interpretation. What it really says doesn't help.
yeah,
What it says is to circuit court. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to correct you, but
yeah,
because this bugged me at the time because when it's part of Act 67. And what happened was the majority of the state boards of adjustment hear conditional use permits, not land use committees. Southern 3/4 of the state and the northern 4th or maybe 3rd, you know, somewhere there. The northern counties, land use committees hear conditional uses, some vast majority. So when they wrote that, amended that, or wrote that law, apparently nobody bothered to check what goes on in the north, right? And so the implication was to direct to circuit court, but it's because it says that you can go directly to circuit court, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And the board generally sustains the county, you know, unless it finds that we were arbitrary and capricious or in some way didn't properly conduct the hearing or whatever. But they almost always sustain us anyway, and it just seems to make sense. And it doesn't happen all that often. We had a few in recent years, but mostly it doesn't happen very often.
yeah, we get one probably appeal a year, I think, to the BOA from a decision this committee made, so. But yeah, so if we make some ordinance changes in the future to say that they could skip that step, then we would have to come back and revise the bylaws.
Right. Okay.
But right now, the ordinance does allow them to go to the BOA. So that's the reason that gray or those notes are in there. If we revise the ordinance, then we'd have to come back and revise the bylaws.
No, in the final version, then what's in gray will not appear.
Correct, yep.
simply a.
Yeah, they're just notes.
To us
Yep.
as we're thinking about these.
Yes, so only the yellow and the green changes would happen for the final document. Let's see what else was there. Same thing in section 4.14, is that same language. Wait, not section 5.2, I just clarified, right now, the towns get a notice. On everything that the committee, this committee does or BOA does, but we don't send the application to them unless they ask for it. Cause we don't wanna, if they don't have an opinion and don't care, why send a bunch of paper to them that they don't want and costs us time and money to send it, so. So that's why it's in parentheses, if they come and if they get the notice from us and they go, hey, can you send us the application, we always do, so. Just wanted to clarify that.
I've got a question too. I would like to see the Board of Adjustment packets put up on the Burnett County website so we can look at them and stuff too. You know, cause it's kind of part of board, you know, our board, but it's run by citizens. But, you know, we get to see that there's something for a Board of Adjustment, but can't see what it is.
Yeah, then I think the county just has to get them iPads, cause right now they are not supplied iPads, so they don't have electronic means to view the packets.
Okay.
So I guess, I mean, that's the only reason why they don't get them you know, they're not done electronically, they don't have iPads supplied by the county, so.
Okay. Is there's, you know, being,
That's ultimately up
it's
to
kind of affiliated with our board. Is there something that we can do to get them iPads so that we can see the packets and stuff?
Maybe request. have
Can
them
we make a
request it,
recommendation
right?
to the administration committee?
Yeah, we should, just because if we're gonna be adding infrastructure like that, we wanna make sure that we're prepared for that cost. I mean, they're not that expensive, but with 3 times 5 and you're replacing them every few years. It's an expense.
Well,
for
there's
us.
7, if you got the alternate ones, so you got 7
Can the
iPads.
documents just be placed online instead of needing an iPad? I mean, can the packets just be put on the county website?
Does it have to be either or? Can it be both? You know, they get their.
Well, yeah, I mean, the packets are all electronic, cause I bundle everything and put it all together, it's just, I guess, a matter of just, right now, the clerk's office is the one that puts the packets online, right?
They could easily place
You're
them
in
on,
trouble.
they could easily place the whole pack.
Well, you don't leave a meeting and we start delegating stuff.
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, would it be necessary that they had iPads as long as they have access to the information? I'm just, you know, if it's more
Well-
readily available for us to see.
So the reason we did iPads was so we don't have to send, right now, they get mailed everything hard copy, so I
Right.
mean. I would prefer if they had iPads, just for the fact I'm not having to mail them, especially those appeals when they're, you know, 400 pages.
Right.
Well, for
Send
now,
them.
we can get things posted on the website, that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
for our office. And then we can determine how and if we should move forward by that.
Yeah.
Well, it's gotta be
Yeah, we-
overhead expense and putting these packets together and mailing them too, so.
Yeah.
Well, true, and the benefit of the iPads is so much more convenient for us.
Mhm.
It would be equally more convenient and less likely to errors or misplaced or lost or.
Yeah, stuff doesn't, mail
Typos,
doesn't always
you know.
get through, so.
I think it's something we'd like to ask, we looked into, Nate.
You want packets like like we do for this meeting and,
Yeah, so they want the BOA packets online, like you do for this committee. Yeah.
It makes it a lot more public process if they're being appealed, you know.
I like that idea of the iPad for the reason too of like open records requests and those sort of things. I will not talk about county business on personal email or other devices. This is it. And I like it for that reason too.
That's absolutely the way to be.
And I guess I'm wondering, the fact that we're reviewing this means it has something to do with this committee. Yes, we can go in and just seek it out, you know, if it's in the iPad, but it's like maybe it could just be emailed to us so we're aware of when I mean, yes, we can go in and seek that information. Because some of the questions that I have in here when I'm looking at, you know, like sections 4.0. The way I'm reading some of this, you know, when we see the statistics on how many are approved. just to get a fuller picture, I'd be interested in knowing the reason for approval, because it seems that there needs to be alleged error by an administrative official. You know, and it states over and over again that the decision should still not be contrary to public interest, but it should still carry out the spirit of the ordinance. And I guess I'm just wondering if we have any data on the reasons. It's like, are people saying the ordinance was misapplied?
No, I mean, I don't even know if they've had any variances where they disagreed with how the ordinance was applied. And it's all setback things, like I can't meet this lake setback, I can't meet this road setback.
Or
So I want
done
a
without
variance.
permits.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, so then it still
And I,
doesn't meet a setback though if
think-
it was done without
I
a
think your
permit.
point is if you could see the whole packet, you'd know what it was they made their decision on, and you don't really know that.
Right.
perhaps, but I guess I'm just wondering if there's that many people who just don't get permits that would have been issued the permit anyway. I mean, we
Well,
don't have
then-
any control over the Board of Adjustment, but
It
I'm
wouldn't
just wondering.
go, it wouldn't go to the Board of Adjustment though, if they do it without a permit and we can permit it, it doesn't go to the BOA. It only goes to the BOA if it can't meet a setback. So if somebody builds a garage and didn't get a permit and we find out and we go, hey, your garage, yeah, you just need a permit, but it meets all the setbacks, we just permit it. It doesn't go to the BOA automatically.
But I've been
Built
seeing,
Violation, we either cite them or double fee them
Yeah.
as an enforcement measure, but
So the BOA is really only hearing things that they cannot meet what the ordinance says.
a good example of that, Karen, would be we, quite a long time ago, it got more or less agreed upon that trying to live up here and not have a garage is a hardship, right? That seems absurd, but you know, the argument would have been, well, if you can't, you don't need a garage to live in your house, but you kind of do here in the winter. You know, people are living here, not cabins anymore. But what the board would tend to do is reduce the setback, allow the garage, then put a safety concern in it. The garage doors couldn't open directly onto the road. You had to come in and make a 90 to get in, so you couldn't just back out into the traffic, right? Stuff like that is what the board does, but you don't see that in the notice and what they got approved,
yeah,
right?
I just see lots of fire pits and patios.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
And so I'm wondering, and
COVID, everybody was told to go sit outside, so I think everyone went to Menards and bought a patio kit.
Yeah.
No,
There
I-
again,
So
it's a
it
matter
gets
of
outside.
degree. If you just put a fire ring down in the setback area, you're probably okay, but when you decide you need to pave it, all of a sudden you've created impervious surface of the structure in the setback.
Yeah,
area.
we never go after someone that puts a few rocks in a ring down there by the lake. It's the ones that, oh, okay, it's a 20 by 20 concrete patio with a 3-foot fire ring in the middle. It's no longer just a fire ring. It's a full-blown patio.
And not that they have to defend them, you know, their decisions to us, but I'm just wondering if these criteria are being met in their evaluation of it. Because otherwise, why would anyone bother to get a permit?
I guess you'd have to ask them.
Okay,
I can comment on that.
And there's a fairly high cost to a variance and
I know.
it used to be $100 when that was a lot of money. It isn't anymore, and it's what, 500 now?
500.
And it's still, in the scheme of things, to some people, just the price of doing business, you know, you gotta cope with that too.
Well, and I've gone to some of the Board of Adjustment meetings just to sit and watch and see what happens and stuff. And so some of it, I wonder if it isn't, you know, better to ask for forgiveness and try to get a permit later than to try and do it the proper way and get denied or something.
It's always some of that. And it,
Some of that.
what tends to work is when they say, when they get one that's pretty egregious and they say, no, remove it and restore it. And then the word of that gets around and then people get a little more nervous about that. It's like any other enforcement.
I just haven't seen that in any of our reports.
And again, that doesn't happen real often either.
No.
It can.
No, that's why I would like to see the Board of Adjustment online so that we can see it. Otherwise, we just see what's on, that there is something going on for the Board of Adjustment and that's it.
And I guess I'd just like to see some, kind of equitable, application.
Well, I mean, our corp counsel is here. I mean, we can always, and we can have training or have meetings with the BOA members, but ultimately, I mean, anyone can appeal their decision.
Oh, absolutely.
Actually, DNR can too. When you're
Yeah.
talking about shoreline stuff.
Yeah.
And we've had that. That's not here, but I begged DNR to appeal one in Washburn County one time and they did. But because the board even said, we screwed up, we got distracted in this hearing and approved something we shouldn't have. So, that happens. Anyway,
Yeah, guess we're a little sidetracked.
Yep. we get back on track.
Let's see here. Section 593. I just took that sentence out there. That already. We never when we send a notice to the adjoiner, we don't ask them to automatically follow up with us with essentially an indication of are they in favor or opposed to it. So that's not, I guess I took that sentence out there. That's not how our noticing goes out to the neighbors. I mean, they get a notice. If they want to weigh in, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. It seems to have been working.
this is probably from the 1972 or.
Exactly. I mean,
Never just lived in there because nobody ever.
yeah.
looked at it before.
6.12, we quit tape recording a long time ago, so put that over there. This one, 6.15 is kind of a little interesting language. We had an appeal at the BOA, and I'm not an attorney, so Steph can weigh in wherever she wants to. Where the applicant and so it was attorneys arguing essentially, one for and one against the appeal. And they were arguing about whether it should have been the BOA should have acted as a de novo hearing or a certiorari hearing. And the BOA members are not attorneys and they really felt like they were getting muddled down in lawyer speak of, what do we even do? So then we kind of came up with this language, so that's why that got inserted in there. So they wanted to have everyone be like a certiorari review. That's where they review the decision of the committee versus a de novo hearing is like you basically start over, right? I believe.
Yeah.
So-
You're asking the committee, the BOA to completely
Yeah,
start from scratch.
to throw out whatever this
The whole
committee did
process.
and just
And
do
then-
it all over.
But that can happen in the circuit court too.
Yes,
Circuit court can decide we got everything, we're gonna hear this case. So
yes,
almost never happens. but
yes.
De novo meaning new.
yeah.
I presume that would be out of Latin.
So that's why we added that language in there, so then we wouldn't have to have the battle, so then any attorneys coming in know that the appeal process is gonna be the certiorari review, review the record.
If they thought that they're appealing a committee decision by this committee, that is probably sound.
Yes,
And the only real way to get around it would be to agree to the board to throw out this entire decision and hear it on their own. And then you got a different committee hearing it, maybe you'll get a different answer.
yes.
But that would be a really disingenuous way to go about business. But I wouldn't say anybody might not try it.
Section 7.3 changed from 30 to 45 days. That's when we mail the decision out. We don't mail the decision to the local municipality. All the stuff is online. If they want to look it up, they can. I've never had a municipality. I don't even think ask what the committee decided on anything. Added section 7.4 added that we record the meetings. We started doing that in 2021. Section 7.5 fixed some of the she items. Added some clarity to section 7.9 because the whatever the BOA decides, it's valid for 1 year, and there's some clarity there. Is it 1 year from the date of the meeting, 1 year from the date of the application? So I just thought 1 year from the date the decision is filed, because that has a hard date. Whatever date that is filed, then it's 1 year from there. Just no offense against attorneys, but I get sick of getting beaten up on all these little things, so you try to add more clarity wherever you can. Fix the typo in section 8.1. Fixed some typo in section 2 under definitions. That's about it. So, and this would have, this has to go to county board yet. So.
I think we already have kind of established this intent, so I think this satisfies what we want to do for now.
Yeah, so the main purpose was getting the BOA from 3 to 5 members. The reason this.
Probably went from us as a motion to approve sending this on to county.
Correct, yes.
Entertain such a motion.
So move.
Motion by Supervisor Blumberg, second.
I'll second it.
Supervisor Moyer. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion is carried to refer this to county board.
Nice job, Dave, Jason. Looks good.
Just one more question. It's like, what does an application look like? Like, do they need to state, I mean, not just that they want it, but it's like.
It's a little overwhelming. A lot of people say, wow, it sounds really tough when they start reading, you know, what's the uniqueness of the property of why I can't comply? What's the hardship of why I need this variance?
It's online.
Yeah, so I mean, now. The ones that already built it will say already built. That's their hardship.
Oh.
Okay,
But is that a hardship? I mean, that's my question, is it looks like they need to state.
Circumstances of the applicant alone are not
The financial burden is not supposed to be, so if they come back and say it's gonna cost me $10,000 to move that item, that's supposed to also not be justification. But again, these are people on the board that get to make the decision. I can't tell them how to vote. So.
Following the guidance.
Mhm.
It's interesting that time limit on it, that was guidance that came along in the late 80s. Because it used to be if a variance was approved and without a sunset, it was forever. Washburn County E was moved back away from Bass Lake, and the homeowner hurried up and built because he thought my variance would no longer be applicable because he was squeezed between the road and the lake. But no, it was one of those with no expiration. You don't have to hurry because you're fine. But that was a reason for why there needed to be an expiration date. Things change.
I'll read through the application. Yeah, because I'm just wondering, it's like, because at some point, I mean, they can pay the money if they want to. But if, you know, like, do you meet one of these criteria? And why do you meet that criteria? So it helps them determine if they want to waste their money. But
They always think they do,
Okay.
even when they don't. Just put that in the back of your mind when you run through this, because you're gonna look at it and go, oh my God. You know, but it makes them make a whole bunch of statements. Validate their reason for spending the money.
And I understand and agree with the reason for a board of their peers or whatever to review that. How do we ensure that the board understands the standard they're being held to?
Really good question
Yeah.
without a good answer. How about that for an answer?
That's why I'm sitting
We
here.
hope they do, we hope they understood it, you know.
I mean, it seems pretty important. I mean, because just equitable enforcement between, you know, people who are applying for permits and following the process and.
It kind of goes back to the basic tenet of, you know, a man's home is his castle, basic property rights, that it's an appellate process. Someone, because the ordinance can't, the world is not perfect, you know, F. Buckminster Fuller didn't design it, so there's places that the rules we have just don't really aren't fair to somebody. That's what it's supposed to provide relief for. And it does probably get stretched a bit sometimes. All in all, otherwise you'd be in court with these sort of things. It's, you don't wanna do that. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment when it comes to applying for permits. One of our permit processes are, I think, when you want a building permit for a structure of some sort, you're opening up your property to be inspected for further enforcement on other things. I've heard of people having a tractor that they wanted to restore at some point or something like that. That was their grandfather's or whatever, sitting out in the yard. That's an ordinance violation. And a lot of times I've heard from people saying, well, I don't want them on my property if they're gonna be doing that. So it makes them think I don't wanna get a permit because I'm opening myself up to something that, you know, so I don't know, I'm just.
Was that in Burnett County? I'm going to say I've never told someone to remove one tractor from their property.
There's instances where, you know, sometimes you have a permit, there are inspections done, things
Oh,
are brought up.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
But
Yes.
that definitely makes it so that people, well, geez, you know, why should I have to explain that I have this whatever on my property? I shouldn't have to. It's.
We try to be a case of where if, you know, it's, if you don't want it to be like if you have a fire, the last people you wanna call are the fire department. We don't wanna be like that, but we do have to point out things that are running amok too, so, you know.
Yeah,
it's a
and I
balancing
don't
act.
know this being applied fairly. That's from what I'm hearing from the constituents. That's the concern I have with it.
Great, well, that, and I think that, if someone wants to do a building permit, puts and build a garage or puts an addition on their house. They shouldn't have to open up their whole property for somebody to go wander around looking for something. It should be site specific. If they wanna build a garage in this spot, that's where it should be, not the rest of the
To
property.
give you the counter to that though, is if you're out there checking the stakeout for the garage and the septic system is surfacing underground, that's a public health issue. That needs, it's a matter of curtilage, you know, it's what you can see. That's a legal term. You can't climb over the fence and look in the yard necessarily, but if it's in plain view, you need to respond. You see us tell people about making sure your septic tank is chained. That's again a safety issue. There is a case that did happen where, and this is a little neglect on the part of the pumper and plumber too, probably, but where the rim of the tank, some tanks used to have the rim on the top rather than inset into the ring. That makes a difference, but that tank lid had fractured and was getting dilapidated. And a kid got on top and played and it dumped him right into the tank. And the mother saw it happen and then jumped into the tank to keep the smaller kid up and then sent the littlest kid in to call the 911 on the phone, right? But that's a matter of responsible staff noticing that and flagging that to correct it. It's not because they're picking on them, but it's because weird stuff like that happens. And so, you know, I mean, I've had time when people's steel tank collapsed, so they covered it up and put a picture window over it. Probably not a real good idea either, right? If somebody steps on that, it's gonna break through the glass before they fall in the tank. You know, people do odd things, and so some of these things need to be surveilled. And you know, they're not to pick on people, it's usually some valid justification for why we do what we do. And people can take it personally, I get that too.
Well, case by case, you know, I mean, nice to look at it, but
I think,
you know, just recently I learned of a gal that go to her mailbox, gets a citation for a septic violation, had no idea that there was even a problem. To me, we need to issue a letter to say, hey, this is what we found, this is a period of time, it should be fixed. You don't send them a citation saying, hey, 300 and whatever it was a day violation and put the person into a total stress blowout. We need to have a little bit more care and concern for our residents in that too.
depends on
I
what
think
it
we're
is.
deviating a little bit.
We
from
are.
The agenda items, so I just want to make sure that we get back on track here. I know those are things that we want to discuss on the next agenda item.
Yes,
We start to
yes.
Discuss,
Right.
you know, how to handle legal issues. We also want to bring some of this conversation forward. So I just want to make sure that's noticed and that we're following statutory guidelines and requirements.
Yep, but I wanna make sure the processes happen a little sooner. People get stressed out and it's day on and day out and they don't get any answers or resolutions. So
Noted. And-
Yes.
Okay, on to committee discussion on pending litigation and land use information.
So we asked that this be placed on here. Supervisor Szymanski had reached out and was curious about when we are lawsuits brought against the county or when our litigation, how does that work? And how often do you guys want to be updated? And we said, you know what, we're not quite sure how often we should update you folks. Usually what happens is myself, land use, as well as the corporation council and usually Chairman Taylor and the county clerk's office are kind of all in the loop because we all have aspects to it once it starts to continue through the process, but we don't necessarily have a good loop with you folks. So if it relates to action that you folks have taken or not taken, we wanted to try to figure out from you, what is your expectation? Because we certainly don't want to not provide that information to you. We just want to make sure that it works with what your expectation is on when that information is delivered to you. And so certainly if there's ever going to be a decision point, you obviously are aware of that, just like we had the closed session at county board last month. As it relates to ongoing action that may be brought to the county, how do you folks want to be kept aware of this? Do you want to do a twice a year closed session? You want to just do a report out quarterly from corporation council if there are things that are ongoing? I guess for us, we want to take the cues from you folks and understand what it is you desire to receive for that information and in what time frame you would like that information.
I'll start. Since I brought this up, for me, I guess a lot of this came from the whole solar farm issue that we had a while ago, and then the fact that there was some sort of legal issue that was filed, and showing up at the Board of Adjustment for their hearing on that, the legal entity for the town of Webb Lake or the city of Webb Lake, whatever it is, township, they made a lot of claims that this committee acted improperly. And that bothered me because I didn't think any of them were true. Some of them were flat out lies. And not that you can do anything at that point, but it just made me think it'd be nice to be aware. Like it would have been nice to know, get some sort of notice that says, this issue is now gone to the next step and is being, filed in circuit court. And I guess what I'd like to know is when there's a change. If it's we know it goes to court and could sit there for 3, 4, 6 months, whatever. But when something happens, I would just like to get a notice saying this has now happened. Understand there's nothing I can do, but and also some guidance in terms of what can we say to our constituents. Somebody in Webb Lake comes up to me and says, oh, I hear the town's suing the county for, because you guys made a bad decision. It would at least be nice to be aware of it. And then how do we respond to some of that stuff?
And I hear exactly what you're saying. That's a really tall order. I'm not quite sure how we're going to be able to do it, but I don't disagree at all with you. I wish we could arm you with that information all the time. Just like allegations of, wrongdoing in this committee happen all the time. Allegations of, my office or another office doing something wrong happen all the time. So I'm not quite sure, how do we handle those? Because there's always those concerns that are out there. So I'm not quite sure how to report on those particular things out.
Yeah, and the Board of Adjustment is a process that goes on and we get the agenda for that and that's great. It's more of when it goes to that next step and actually, some sort of a suit gets filed and legal action gets taken. It'd be nice to say, hey, this happened. And again, I don't know at what point do we cross the line where you're giving us too much information?
Well, maybe the threshold would be once we reach out to our law firm that we work with to defend us. Maybe that's when we provide notice all to you folks.
Yeah.
That's when usually we provide notice to Chairman Taylor, so that he's aware of it, can track it, because normally he would be the one that would need to sign off on those particular things. So we want to make sure he's kept aware of it. That would be appropriate. We could certainly provide the notification to all board members at that point in time.
It was kind of in a way fortuitous because the new board members got to do the
Yeah.
closed session with our law firm from Madison on a pending case we hope is done pretty soon, but that's what we've been doing for 4 years on that one.
Yeah,
But I agree with Grant, it's like I've shown up at town meetings or whatever, and they say, and I'm just kind of like, what? I had no idea. And I think the reason it is good to at least know if there's been some sort of a challenge or whatever, it's like, if things happen enough, it's like, you know, reviewing our process. Or it's like, okay, is there something in the ordinance that needs to be, it's like, what's, you know, if we're not aware of what's being challenged, and sometimes it's like, people challenge even if there isn't anything to challenge.
One, I think that's what happens often. You know, in my 10 years, 11 years that I've been here, there's very few cases that we've actually been, that have actually, somebody's taken court action against the county, very, very few. And so I think you might hear more of those concerns out there, but it's more probably statements from folks and it's not actual action that took place. So I'm not sure how we would ever be able to get into that particular stream and provide you information on that, or prior to even, you know, somebody making those false claims.
I don't think false claims as much as, you know, if someone, you know, if someone filed something against.
yeah, and I
We
don't,
have many. I mean, that's just it. So we
Say we,
very,
it's
very
like
few.
we're getting
So
one every week.
it sounds like you're hearing a lot of noise, but there's very few actionable.
No, I think it was just because
items we could-
yeah, I think it's,
A lot of smoke and only a spark.
Yeah.
and my instance was like some solar farm things too. It's like, you know, I hear it and I'm like, well, boy, how come I didn't know about that?
Just a thought on a solar farm one, I'm just gonna throw out my opinion here, but had Northwest Electric said, no, we're gonna fight that decision. The law, you know, the state law about that kind of facility is so clear. There's no way they would have lost, but he just didn't want to keep fighting.
yeah, it's just time. And I don't want the fact that I attended that Board of Adjustment and heard somebody say things that I didn't think were true, that's no big, that's neither here nor there.
Sure.
You know, for me, it's, you know, getting a notice that says this has gone to circuit court, you know, here's what they're, you know, requesting, or here's what they're filing. You know, just a tidbit of information. So if somebody says, you know, are you aware of this? I can say, I'm aware of it, can't comment on it, and I'm aware of it. That's all. Because when somebody comes up and says, oh, so I guess blah, 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 and you go, huh?
Yeah, you look.
You're kind of like, well, aren't you on that committee or on the board? You know, that's my 2 cents.
I don't want to be blindsided either. So what we'll do is the second that we, you know, initiate with our insurance firm, that's when we'll make sure all board members are aware. I think that's probably the easiest.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Because at that point, we're opening up a claim, and so we can track it internally and from a cost-based standpoint as well. And then you'll know whether it's noise out there and somebody's saying it, or something.
And that would be any case, not just land use, right?
Correct. Well, you know, once we get into law enforcement and action like that, I mean, it gets a little bit different.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think there's more cases out there of that type of stuff probably than land use.
Right.
Without a
Right.
doubt.
One of the
Yeah.
things that generates the smoke, let's call it, of our activities, you know, rather than what's really going underlying it, is that a bunch of people were here and, you know, either attended it, saw the decision, or heard from their neighbors, and the farther it gets from the original source, the more confused it sometimes gets. You know, it's kind of classic, but we're the only people who invite the public in to comment on something, right? And so it leads to an appeal. Then there's a whole bunch of people that already have some understanding of it, but maybe not the whole story, and it can kind of become weird in a hurry, right? It's what we get the big bucks for being on this committee for. Any further, anything to add, Stephanie?
If there is, before she jumps in, if there is a need for, you know, closed session, obviously, we can always do that as well. There just hasn't been the need up until even the county board action that took place last month. But again, even in my 11 years, I think we've had attorneys before the county board maybe twice. Maybe twice. We've had them before it on outside guidance on particular matters, but not necessarily on.
So last month is a good example. Has anything happened since then? Probably not, but when it does, will we be informed? To say this was accepted or that, you know,
So we did sign an agreement with them. And if Stephanie wanted to elaborate, certainly she could probably elaborate a little bit more eloquently than I could from a legalese standpoint. But we did sign an agreement with that party, and hopefully at this point in time, it'll be laid to rest. We'll see what action happens next.
but we're still waiting for an answer to come. Right,
You're correct.
yeah, okay, and that's, I guess, my,
That we don't know. We took the action that you folks asked us to take during county board, and we, both parties agreed upon that. But that's it. Court action hasn't occurred.
If there's nothing further on this, then we'll leave it where we have it for now. Everybody be up to speed. Land services, information and zoning division reports. No.
So the reports are in there, staff comments are in there, budget report is in there as well. Nothing out of the line at this point in the year. Lots of permits still going on yet, still busy. Permit numbers are in there. $244 sanitaries, lots of those still going yet too. There's and this is where you'll see the report from the BOA, essentially where I kind of just summarize, you know, how many cases they've had, what the case was, and then whether it was approved or not. But I don't put anything in there about, you know, met this hardship, met this unique, you know, thing, because yes, that would be a whole lengthy report as on its own record then.
Interpreting it.
Yeah.
Is that the part under variances?
Yep.
Okay.
So those are everything that's been to the BOA this year.
Because I am curious about, on some of these, and I think I'll just start attending the meetings. I mean, because I am curious.
Well, they're recorded too, so you could watch them after the fact or live.
Because I'm curious what makes some of these meet the criteria.
And we have interviews tomorrow for some of our open positions, so that's good. Other than that, yeah, just plugging away.
With nothing further to add on that, do we have any future agenda items? Okay.
I do. One of the items that we would like to discuss, and this has been discussed probably 2 or 3 times more in depth over the course of the last 10+ years, of how enforcement should be done in Burnett County. And, you know, obviously, as we have change of policymakers, we want to make sure that we can engage you folks and have that discussion and better understand, you know, how you want us to do enforcement and what your expectations are and what's the requirement of staff from an enforcement standpoint, from the standpoint of our local ordinances, as well as maybe state rules and regulations or DNR rules that we're also required to enforce. And so I think it's a good, healthy conversation to have. And therefore, you folks and as policymakers can really look at, okay, what's policy and what can we change if there's something we want to change within our ordinances, and how do we go about doing that? And if it's related to enforcement, how do we go about putting policies in place as it relates to that enforcement action? And so, you know, you brought up one example even today, and I think that's what helps us clarify how you folks want us to move forward. We work for you as elected officials, and we understand that and we know that, but oftentimes there's also a lot of past practice. And so we also know that past practice is, and Stephanie's here, will confirm it's a legal, you know, action, right? And so we want to make sure that if we're going to start to deviate from that, we've got a reason to deviate from that as it relates to you folks as policymakers for the decisions and how we have done work in the past. So I would like to have that conversation starting next month with you folks. And my guess is it's gonna take a couple months to kind of walk through that process, but I think it'll be good for all of us to have a better understanding of what does staff do? How do they go through the process of enforcement? And then what is the expectation that you folks have in enforcement? And then ultimately, are there ordinances that you want changed?
Nate, I might suggest we start that in December.
Okay.
Because there's always a mad stampede of stuff in November land use
There's 6 on the agenda.
on that agenda, but just.
You're the chair, so you get to decide.
That's what we're gonna do, because haven't sat in his chair longer than he has so far.
Yeah.
Why, anyway, there's always a flurry at the end of the year of people trying to get stuff done, just in the permitting stuff, you're still short-staffed. You're not gonna have a lot of time to really organize the presentation in November, I don't think.
No, and yeah, I don't even, well, at this point, I don't even know what to present.
Yeah, so let's talk
Without having a
about it.
discussion about
Let's
what you
talk
guys
about it
want to
among
know.
ourselves and plan something to start in December instead. So we can get it going in when things die down a bit. You got somebody else to answer the phone, that kind of thing.
I just want to thank our administrator for doing a good job of managing issues in our staff, and even with Jason's comment, I mean, he doesn't know what to present. That just shows insight on his part. So I mean, that's great. So I'm looking forward to that process. Thank you.
We'll figure out what we need, where we need to go with that. Start that, but we'll do it when I already know it's gonna be a hectic month for the staff, so. December it is. Next meeting will be the 5th of November, which is already a pretty busy one compared to today.
Yeah, and then it's election day too, so.
That'll be handy.
There's an election coming?
Yeah.
Imagine that. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by
Beat 'em. Come on,
Okay.
give me the benefit.
You got that one. Okay,
You
we're
need a
on.
buzzer, you need something, you gotta hit that lights up, right?
We're adjourned.
Seconds?
Okay.
Follow up. Yeah, I didn't have a chance on Monday,
Used to be, but
the last week, we were down there, but.
you're a busy boy. And some of it is not allowed.